Hi guys, Mr. David here. So there are a lot of really interesting jobs out in the world. Take mine for example. I get to read silly books with silly voices, do arts and crafts, and teach fun activities to kids. I love my job, and I can't believe it took me so long to find it. But in finding this job, I had a lot of other jobs working in kitchens at fast food restaurants, selling newspapers, selling insurance, working customer service, and even working as an actor. Now, along the way, I learned a lot, but I also met a lot of interesting people with interesting jobs. You know what? I want to share them with you. I want you to meet my friends and find out about their interesting jobs and what they did to get those jobs and what you can start studying if you want to do that in the future. Does that sound good? So, over the next few weeks, join us as we get to talk to my friends and find out about their really interesting jobs. I hope you enjoy. Years ago, when I lived in New York, I actually got a job working at Ripley's Believe It or Not in Times Square. Not just as a crazy acting character, but as a magician, someone who had to know some magic to help entertain the guests and get them to come into the museum. Well, I couldn't have done that if I hadn't met tonight's guest. His name is Kent Axell. He now lives in Las Vegas and is an amazing magician and mentalist. And everything I know when it comes to magic, I actually learned from this guy. I really had a fun conversation with him, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hi, guys. I'm here with Kent Axell. This is a friend of mine that I've known for a long time. So, Kent, why don't you start by explaining how you describe your job? Like, what is your job title?
Well, my job title is magician, really. I mean, that's what I do for a living. However, when people hear that I'm a magician, they go, "Oh, you do magic tricks for work." And 90% of what somebody who does gigs like me does for work is usually self-promotion, is usually
Mhm.
reaching out to companies and reaching out to certain people and finding out exactly where you fit into the events that they're doing. Or you could do public shows or whatever. But generally speaking, I like calling myself a magician or a mentalist.
Sure.
But um, but most of what I do happens to be promotion to try to get paid to do what I love to do, which is to perform.
Well, how long have you been performing as a magician?
So I've been performing magic. Let's adjust my cam there.
Sure.
Yes, perfect. I've been performing magic. Wow. Now since I was about 8 years old, and professionally for the last, say, 13 years, since I was about 20.
Okay. So, so you said you started at about age 8. What kind of got you interested in learning magic?
So this is great. It's super cliche, but I'll tell you, if there are any magicians watching, they'll understand exactly what I'm saying, and I won't have to speak in code at all. But if there are, I know there are a bunch of people who are not magicians watching, so let me just explain this miracle that I saw. Okay, so I don't even think you know this story, but
I might
my
not.
uncle, it's a very cliched story. The short version is your uncle shows you a trick,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your uncle or your dad shows you a trick, and then you get a magic kit, and then you become obsessed, and then the magicians who do it for a living just never grow out of that phase. But the ones who end up doing it for many people actually come back to magic later in life. But I just didn't do that. I just stuck with it. But the details of the story are interesting. It's absolutely miraculous. So my uncle had me take a coin. He gave me a coin, a little dime, and he said, "Here, mark it with this." And I said, "That's a knife." And he said, "Yeah, it's a knife." And I'm like, but there are markers." And he's like, "Yeah, mark it with the knife, kid. Don't give me that lip, whatever." So he had me take a pocket knife. It was a different time. He gave me a pocket knife and had me mark this coin, and that's how I knew that it was going to be the same coin when I saw it again later, right? And so he took the coin and he put the coin, and I put a little X like right in a very specific spot. Notice, I mean, you know it's the same coin because I could have put a
Sure.
line or 3 lines, but I just put a little X right up in the corner. He took the coin and he put it in his pocket, and immediately, no waiting, immediately removed a matchbox from his pocket. And the matchbox was all wrapped up with rubber bands, okay? And it was all wrapped up with rubber bands all the way around in all directions. And so he gave me the matchbox and he said, take the rubber bands off. And I took off the rubber bands and then I opened it up. And David, can you guess what was inside that matchbox?
I'm going to guess that coin was in that matchbox.
No, it was another matchbox. Smaller. It was a smaller matchbox, also totally wrapped up in all sorts of rubber bands. And then when I unwrapped that one and opened that one up, can you guess what was inside there?
I'm going to say another matchbox.
No, it was a little bag. Now, this is the part that blew my mind because I could start to imagine how maybe one could kind of get a coin in between but the bag was rubber banded around the top this way, right? So it was sealed like this, kind of like the image of a Santa Claus bag, right? Mm-hmm. But very small inside the matchbox. So I took the rubber band off of that and opened it up, and inside there was the coin marked. And that to me was absolutely miraculous.
No, just hearing that trick is miraculous. I've never seen anything that complex, like that many layers in. I've seen like watches and spaghetti cans and things like that are pretty amazing. Did he ever teach you how to do that trick, or did you ever learn how to do that specific one?
Well,
or is that like your white whale of you're chasing that trick?
No, he did. You know, a more seasoned and subtle magician may have, there's some way that he gets that coin in his pocket.
Right.
Or gets that coin not in his pocket because you watch him put it in his pocket. There's some way that he gets that coin inside all of those things because it is the same coin. So I went and I studied and I learned as much as I could about magic. And because I thought that I was looking at just the tip of the iceberg, somebody that can do something so miraculous, they must have some very deep esoteric knowledge. He must have had to go to the top of a mountain, find a cross-legged man and learn the trick from him. But no, apparently that was the only trick he knew. Or he knew one, he knew a few like tiny other ones. He had kind of an idea of how to do a couple of things, but really that was his go-to. And so when I came back the next year to the next like family reunion, I had about maybe 6 hours worth of material. It wasn't all gold, but I was really studied. I had obsessed over it for the year. And then when I got back, I showed the material and he was like, okay, well, you're way better than me. And he taught me how to do the trick. Okay. And it was a lot easier than I thought, but it always is. It always is. Yeah.
So when learning, sorry.
Well, yeah. So the cool thing is this, you'll notice there is, of course, some way to get that coin inside of all of those things.
Sure.
But a seasoned magician, and I can now look back and see that he wasn't performing this as good as he could have, because a seasoned magician would have taken that coin and first made the coin vanish, right? Secretly retaining it in their hand somehow. I won't tell you how, but secretly retaining it in their hand. Then when the coin is gone and everyone wonders where it is, you reach your hand into your pocket, do the thing you need to do, and take out the matchbox. But he didn't do that. He just went straight for the trick, right? Coin, look, into my pocket, out comes a matchbox.
Yeah.
And there's something interesting and esoteric about that approach. It's not what I would do. I would probably try to make that coin vanish, but it somehow doesn't diminish.
Well, I remember one time when we were hanging out together years ago and you were teaching a magic trick, you said to me, and it stuck with me, and I've said it to others, that really in a good trick, you need two very important moments. You need the setup, but then you need the magic moment, the moment that it distracts you to let the trick happen, but it has to be there, because if you rush it and don't have that magic moment, it's just like going, man, there we go. And it's kind of a letdown.
So all rules are meant to be broken, and sometimes that rule can be broken in context. But yeah, as a general rule, if anyone out there listening is trying to learn how to do magic, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to give yourself what Dave was just referring to is a magic moment, which is it's supposed to be the moment that the magic happens. And so in the story I was telling, that coin just goes straight into the pocket, and then out comes the matchbook. There's no magic moment.
Hmm.
But if you had a method for making that coin appear to vanish, now again, the vanish isn't the magic moment either. The magic moment is the moment where it goes into the hand and then you snap your fingers. And the snapping of the fingers is the thing that is supposed to have caused the coin to vanish, right? So if there's
Right.
something that you do that causes the thing to vanish or transform or transport, then that's the magic moment. It's pretty cool. Very,
Yeah.
very useful concept for new magicians too.
Now, speaking of learning tricks and being new to magic, for you, you've been doing magic for many, many years now. How long does it take when you set out to learn this new trick? You find a trick or you start developing one. How long, on average, does it take from start to you being able to perform it in your act or for people?
Yes. Now, there are two ways to answer that question. The
Okay.
first way is that's a surprisingly complicated question, even though it doesn't seem it. So if you were to ask a singer, how long did it take you to learn that song, right?
Hmm.
Somebody that's a professional singer, let's say Celine Dion or whatever, right? Now that professional singer may have had ages and ages and years and years and years of professional voice training and practicing memorizing
Right.
songs too. And so, if I were to say, if I were to learn a trick today, then if it took me an hour to learn the trick, that's taking me an hour to learn the trick. You know what I mean? So
Right.
so I've been doing this now for the better part of 20, I mean, more than 20 years at this point. I've been studying this art form. And so if it takes me an hour to learn something, it may also take you only an hour to learn it too, because
Mhm.
the secret is the secret. And
Right.
oftentimes the secrets are very easy to understand. But the execution that I put to it will be backed up by 20 years of experience being burned by audience members.
Sure.
So you could say a trick that took me an hour to learn today took me 20 years to learn really.
Sure.
So I would say that if somebody wants to get into magic, obviously that question. I'm overcomplicating the question, but
No, you're good. You're good. No, it makes sense because it really nothing is easy to learn in general, but then once you learn it, other things come easier because
yeah, yeah, of course.
it's building blocks.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's building blocks, and other things do come easier once you've learned it. So if there's, for instance, if a trick requires that you learn that you are able to do that,
Hmm.
right? But if I can already do that, it's going to take me a lot less time to learn it than somebody who can't do that,
Right.
right? So that plus all of the little immeasurable things that you learn from doing this in front of people for 20 plus years, it's a very difficult question to answer straightforwardly. But the
Sure.
important nugget of information is that there are a lot of really great magic tricks that only take about 5 minutes to learn. So if somebody wanted to, like even for a total beginner, so if somebody wanted to, now, the 1,000th time you do that trick is going to look very different than the third time you do that trick. So definitely, it's not like me and somebody else who learned the same trick are going to do it the same way right off the
Right.
bat. But you can start impressing your friends with magic right away. That's
Now,
the
one
nice
thing
thing.
I remember when we were hanging out and you were doing magic stuff, is how supportive the magic community was. Where we would go to the magic shop, and you would sit down with the other professional magicians, and you'd say, "Here, watch this," and do a trick, or they would do a trick, and then you guys would talk about, well, when I do it, I would do this or that, and really, it was kind of a hive mind workshop of the best way to execute this trick. And I really
Yeah,
like that camaraderie in the magic community.
Yeah, there is depending on what circles you run in. I've learned that some circles are different than others, but
Hmm.
in general, I have found that if you approach the magic community with an open mind and good intentions, then they're incredibly welcoming. There is this sort of like air in some of the magic community where they want to sort of keep people at arm's length and keep them distanced.
Hmm.
I just find that not enough people are actually interested in learning the secrets to justify that kind of like secret society behavior. Uh, the people that come at you earnestly, anytime somebody's come to me and said, "Hey, I want to learn magic," or "I want to learn that trick," I will
Hmm.
give them a direct pathway to do it. If
Sure.
not just telling them how it works right away. If they're another magician, I might just tell them, "Oh, it's this, this, and this."
Right.
But if it's somebody who's interested in learning, I'll definitely always give them a way to do it, give them a way to learn. And yeah, I remember, I think you and I were going to Phantasma. It was either
Yeah.
Phantasma or Tannins, but I think it was Phantasma.
Phantasma.
Yeah, and they had this. It was a New York based magic shop.
Hmm.
There are a couple in the city. Phantasma and Tannins are two of the bigger ones. And so if you ever get to New York and you want to see the magic shops there that I used to visit, go to those two shops, assuming they're both around. I know they're both around right now. Um, but yeah, yeah. So the communities there are very nice. Oftentimes in a magic shop, you might have a local magic shop there in town, and you might want to link them down below if you do have a local one.
Unfortunately, Little Rock's just closed a couple of years ago. It was an
Mm.
amazing store, but they
Well,
still sell stuff online. So,
well, Little Rock actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Little Rock has a very strong magic community.
hmm.
There's a gentleman over there that does shows, and he also does ghost tours. His name is Paul Prater, and people should definitely check him out as well. I know I should be
Oh,
giving
it's
you
all
my,
right.
but
We're not
I'll
selling
go ahead.
tickets on this, so but people
Well,
can know, letting people know what there is locally. So,
yeah, yeah, and he's a wonderful magician. He would call himself a mentalist probably, but either way, he does illusions based in he deceives people to believe that he is a psychic, and that's the how mentalism
well,
works.
yeah, it's like Amazing Randy always said he is an honest liar.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Some people in the magic community are less honest liars, but
All right, so let's go back a second to starting out in magic. Now, when
yeah.
you were first starting out, do you remember what the very first trick that you learned was? We heard you talk about the one that got you interested in magic, but do you know what the very first one you learned was?
So yes, I think so. I think I do, and it's a trick where a card turns the other way in the deck. It's a
Okay.
trick where you have somebody take a card, and then they put their card back in, and their card turns the other way in the deck. However, it's the wrong card, and so it's a when they find their card, when you say that's your card or whatever, it's a 5 instead of whatever their card was. Let's say they chose a 7 of hearts, right?
Right.
But that's a 5 of diamonds, so no, that's not my card. And you say, well, no, that's an indicator card, and you go and you count 5 cards over from the 5, and lo and behold, the 5th card over is their card, the 7 of hearts. And then, as a kicker, those 4 cards in between turn out to be the 4 aces. I'm pretty sure that's the first card trick that I learned.
That's a pretty impressive trick.
It's
So,
a great trick. It's a
yeah.
beginner's trick. It's very simple. I mean, actually, I could probably teach it to you guys right here if you wanted to at some point.
Sure.
I know we're doing well on time here. When we get talking, we just go. But yeah, what I would recommend though is a lot of people, you'll understand if you're learning magic, really pay attention to the experience that you have performing a trick, how you feel as reflect yourself onto the audience members and really understand what they're viewing. One of the beautiful things about magic is that it teaches empathy,
Hmm.
because you must know what your audience is experiencing at all times to be an effective magician. If you haven't fooled somebody, you haven't done any magic. It doesn't matter. You may have done theater, you may have done a cool special effect, but you definitely didn't do magic if the audience is not astonished.
Right.
And so what I would recommend is, as you're learning these beginner tricks, some of them are better than others. If you find yourself dealing 3 rows of 7 cards over and over and over and over again. And you'll know what I mean if you go and look at beginner's magic tricks. Maybe that's not so much the way to go. There are better tricks. And I'll teach you one, actually, if you're interested. But that'll, whenever you lead the way here on this.
Let me ask one more question, then we'll do a trick, and then we'll go back to the questions. So
Sure.
when you excuse me, sorry, there's multiple different styles of magic. There's kind of anywhere, there's walk around, there's parlor and grand illusion. Would you suggest that kind of card coin anywhere magic is kind of the best way to begin, or what would you suggest for people if they wanted to start somewhere? What's the best way in?
Oh boy. Okay, I have a book recommendation. Let me grab this book.
We're always happy to recommend books.
Yeah, this is for the library, right? So I gotta imagine. Oh, I'm lucky I wore pants. I've been doing so much Zoom meetings. Everything's from the waist up, right? I don't want to give you too much editing to have to do.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. So this is a book. Notice, very thick book, right?
I actually have that book. It's a wonderful book.
Yeah, this is Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic. Now, I got this at like a discount bookstore somewhere in one of my travels. But whenever I see this book discounted, I buy it because I want to give it to a student of mine if I can. This book has a little bit of everything in it. Mm-hmm. So really, what I'm going to recommend to any individual person watching this is the thing that you like the most. And I don't know what you like the most. Some people like to pretend to read minds. Some people like card tricks. Some people like coin tricks. Some people like rope tricks or big stage tricks or ordinary object tricks like paper clips and dollar bills. But check this out. In this book, you have a little bit of everything. So you can go through here and learn in just a couple of pages. I know this is really hard to see right here. There you go. Anything you like, it's really laid out very clearly with really
and
good
the
pictures.
Diagrams that they use to show how to do the things are really well done. So
yeah, check that out. That's beautiful. These images, everything is really easy to understand. I mean, I think when I was tearing through this book, it was right away when I just got into it. It was that year after I think I picked it up at Barnes & Noble, my mom grabbed it at Barnes & Noble. And then I just tore through it. It's a great book. It's got a little bit of everything. And the stuff that you find yourself performing the most of, you will just naturally be drawn to. Every single type of magic in here has its own full library of books. Look, every book over there is a magic book, right? And that's not even, that's close to how many there are. So yeah, this is a great book. This is probably my number one recommendation if I had to make one for beginning magicians.
All right, why don't we see a card trick real quick, and then we'll get back to some questions.
All right, you want me to show one or teach one? I'll teach that one that I just talked about.
Let's teach.
All right, so here, I'm going to change my angle, and then I'm going to walk through this trick with you guys. Here we go. All right. So here is the trick. I got a Texas deck of cards for you guys so that I know it's not Arkansas, but I don't have an Arkansas deck or else I would use it. So here's a cool trick. You can do this. It's the trick I described to you. I think it's the first card trick I learned. And you can do this over Zoom, which is kind of cool. If you're talking to your friends and family right now over the internet, you can do this trick. So what I'm going to do is just drop cards like this until David says stop.
Stop.
There. Okay. Do you want me to drop these ones or put them back on the deck?
Put them back.
Put them back. All right.
Yeah.
So do you want this card here or this card here, or do you want me to go farther? I can go one at a time.
Top of the deck. The one on the top of the deck.
Okay. So I'm going to show you, and I'm going to look away from the deck. I don't know how to do this so that you can see, but I'm going to look away and then show you the card. All right.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Cool. So I'm turning back face down. I'm putting that right there, and we'll just throw the rest of them on top. Now watch.
Okay.
Nothing fishy. I'm going to square the cards up. Then I'll snap my fingers. There's your magic moment. And one card will have flipped the other way around in the deck. Now, I already ruined the ending on this for you guys, but there's the card right there. Mm-hmm. The 5 of clubs. That's the card that flipped over. What do you think of that?
That's pretty impressive, but it's not my card.
No, I never said it was your card. I said one card would flip over in the deck, right?
Right.
But look, if I go 5 cards down. Look, 5. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th card down. What was your card?
It was the 10 of spades.
10 of spades, and that is magic right there, the 10 of spades.
Wow.
But it gets even better than that. Look, these 4 cards right here that were right there between those 2 cards, those are in fact the 4 aces.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it's a lovely trick. And it's
Yeah.
So if you guys want to learn how to do that, it's just like this. Check this out. You get the 4 aces out of the deck, and then you get any 5 out of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
You take your deck and you put the 5 face up on the bottom of the deck like that. Let me do it this way. It'd be easier for you to see.
Sure.
Then you take the 4 aces and you put them face down underneath the 5 like that. So your full situation is this. You've got the 5 here and then the 4 aces, right?
Right.
Now the deck is squared up. And you go through the cards one at a time if you want. If you have a person there with you, you can just spread the cards and have them take one, as long as you don't spread too much, right?
Right.
So what I've done over Zoom is just kind of dealt the cards into little piles and asked David to say when to stop. And so you can do that. You can do it one at a time or whatever. Then you can be very specific. Do you want this one or whatever? But it doesn't matter. This card here, this is the card. So now over Zoom, you may have to like show them your face. So you know you're not watching, right? But then you show the card here. That's the 10 of hearts in this case, right? You put it down. And then you put that 10 of hearts, right? You put it here on the bottom pile. And now you throw the rest on top. But guess what you're doing, right? Oops, I didn't mean to throw that. So here, the 10 of hearts is there on top of this pile. And then you're going to throw all of the cards on top. Well, that's going to put the 4 aces and the 5. That's your whole setup. It's going to put them right on top. So you put that card down and you say, and I'll just throw the rest on top, right? Now you square all these cards up. And then you snap your fingers, say 1 card turns over in the deck. You can spread them out fancy like me if you practice, or you can just spread them out in your hands. But spread them out either way. There it is. There's the face-up card. And there is the 5 of clubs. Now, they'll correct you. They'll say, that's not my card. And you say, I never said it was your card. If you want to do a cheesy joke, then you say, look, that's an indicator card. That means that we count 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What was your card? The 10 of hearts. That's your card right there, the 10 of hearts. Then these cards, of course, are the kicker. That is the 4 aces.
Awesome.
All right. I hope everyone understood that.
No, that's a great trick to start with. That's a wonderful trick. So
it's a great beginner's trick.
Yeah.
It's there are a lot of beginner's tricks that I still do in my paid corporate events. I just do them with 20 years of performance experience now, you know?
Oh, so yeah. The trick I do for people at the library more than any other ones is one of the first ones you taught me, which is an easy trick. It's the one where they freely choose a card, then you shuffle it in the deck, and then the shuffle goes back and forth, kind of a slop shuffle.
Oh, I love that. I love that trick.
Such a simple trick. And they like freak out every time. They're like, wait, how did that happen? And
yeah. I want to show you. That's actually a version. I have a version of that prepared for you.
Oh, wonderful. Why don't we see that? Why don't we switch and see that real quick?
Okay. Yeah. We'll see that right now. This is one of my favorite versions of that trick, guys. Watch this. So look, a pack of cards. Now, again, on Zoom, you just have, if you were live, you just have somebody choose one, right?
Right.
But we were on Zoom. So I'm going to go through these backwards like this. And at some point, just name one of the cards that you see.
Jack of diamonds.
Jack of diamonds. So we're going to set that one aside. All right. And now what I'm going to do is take these cards. We'll split them about in half. And we'll take half of the cards face up like this and half of the cards face down like that. All right. We'll put the jack here so that it's obscured among the face down cards. Now we'll take these cards and give them a solid shuffle together like this. The face up cards into the face down. And that gives us a royal mess, just like that. All right. Now we'll square these up, and we still have an issue. Now, this is what I put my students through, right? I say, I've got a card in mind. And what did we have? The Jack of Diamonds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I say, look, you have to find it. But the first thing that you have to do in this deck is you find the card first, you locate it. And so now I've located the card.
Okay.
Then you put the card where you want it. Okay. I put the card where I want it. And then you prove it. And the way that you prove it is by writing every single other card except for the Jack of Diamonds. Every
Wow.
single card face down except for one.
That is fantastic.
Thank you.
That's so clean. And yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I really love that trick. You can take that to, man.
Well, speaking of favorites, what is your favorite thing about your job as a magician?
It's the moment, man. It's the moment where you've built up all this tension, and then it just gets released. You know, the moment that somebody notices that the card in their hand has changed to another card. That's such a good moment.
Now, what is the toughest thing about being a magician?
The toughest thing about being a magician, COVID. I mean, that's a canned answer for everybody right now, right?
Yeah.
But you know that has affected the way that I do my job a lot. But the toughest thing about being a magician probably is maybe I haven't really thought of this because I just like doing it so much, but it's probably balancing how much you should practice new material with how much you should refine old material, and then finding time in there to be reaching out to potentially get new gigs. You know, how to market yourself, how to if you want to do it for a living. There's so much more. I mean, this is a classic trope, but I know we've got kids here, so they probably maybe haven't heard this before. But the business is show business, right? And the bigger word there is business,
right?
Which is really upsetting when you start to learn about it. But it is true. It is true. You have to be always working to convince people to give you money to do card tricks. You know, it's not like everyone who learns magic gets to be David Blaine or Dynamo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those people get backed by massive corporations to put them on TV. And
right.
That's totally cool. But for most people who learn magic, it's you have to constantly grind to find that next gig.
Now, so if a kid out there was really chomping at the bit to become a magician and was going out and they were getting the Greg Wilson book and finding all sorts of other avenues to learn, Jay Sankey, Greg Wilson, just all these different people that they can find videos of, what would the one piece of advice, if you could tell them anything, not just about magic in general, just about if they wanted to become a magician, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Okay.
I know that question went all over the place. So.
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I can answer simply with a platitude, and then we can discuss all sorts of different avenues. But the platitude is this: an amateur performs different tricks for the same people.
Mm-hmm.
A professional performs the same tricks for different people.
Okay.
So if you find yourself with a set of material that you really like, I would highly recommend avoiding going on to learn the next thing. You know, sometimes it's good to just sit on some material that you have for even a couple of years sometimes. Now, when you start in magic, you're going to want to take in everything, and you're going to want to constantly be performing all sorts of different tricks. But once you find some stuff that works for you, maybe 5 to 10 tricks, you can make a career out of 5 to 10 tricks. Okay? Because you go to perform for all the people that have never seen you before. And then because you perform these tricks thousands of times in a row, or thousands of times in general, you get really good at them. Usually, if you're performing a trick 1,000 times, you become the best person in the world at performing that trick. because there's so much magic in the world.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
so many magicians and so much magic content. I mean, this is a pretty big library of magic books, but it doesn't even scratch the surface.
Hmm.
So I would say once you do find the material that works for you, try and stick with it, or try and get your core tricks together and be very careful about adding more stuff. The other end of that is adding more people to your audience. So, you can, one way you can add more people to your audience is by doing more gigs. But
Sure.
right now we have this opportunity, let's say, where everyone's sort of stuck in their houses, right? And everyone's online looking for new content. That's kind of why we're doing this. And if you wanted to start an Instagram page and do like more angle sensitive stuff, like that looks like that kind of, or just stuff that's like that people can watch from home. That's fun stuff to learn too.
Oh, yeah.
So you can build a really big audience of people if you're doing like impressive looking camera stuff at home too.
Sure.
So yeah. Basically, professionals perform the same tricks for different people
I
in
like
part
that. I like
of,
that.
the, of their show.
Now, also magicians, one thing I learned from you and from other magicians is you kind of have to be knowledgeable in other areas, not just in the actual trick itself, because there is an element of performing with it. Whereas the people who just go, oh, I know a card trick, it's
Yeah.
not as impressive as the verbal and the showmanship that goes with it. So
Yeah.
if someone was working on becoming a magician, what other areas would you encourage them to look at and study?
Okay. Well, it's very difficult for me to highly recommend something
Sure.
like um, some kind of schooling. But I would recommend certain experiences, certainly, to get yourself comfortable, because you can philosophize all day about different types of performances and how to enter a stage and all of that kind of stuff. But if you're not applying that to practice, then it becomes very difficult to internalize that and put it into practice in your magic.
Hmm.
So what I would recommend, I would recommend getting into some kind of theatrical team, some kind of community theater project. I know that you have some connections with that
Hmm.
kind of thing, so people
Yeah.
locally can definitely come to you for help. And I know that, so I would recommend that you get yourself on stage, no matter what it takes, so that you become comfortable on stage. Now, if you're doing that, now you have a place where you can apply new knowledge. So you can
Sure.
buy theater books, or go to theater school if that's something that you're interested in pursuing, or take a theater class at a normal school or a community school or whatever. But definitely, I mean, you kids are going to be young, so you're going to be
Hmm.
you're going to be doing, you got your high school plays, you got your high school musicals or middle school plays or whatever. So definitely join in with those if you're interested in performing magic for a living. It teaches you so much stuff that just doing teaches you so much more than you can ever get by just sort of retaining knowledge.
Sure. All right. I just have a couple more questions, like pretty much two more, but they
Sure, I
may
got
be
I got
loaded ones. So,
all night.
so influences growing up and current magicians that you watch, or performers, or just who are your biggest influences magic wise?
Okay, wow, big one. So probably I would say in the early years, David Blaine.
Hmm.
He does some really astonishing magic. I think it was David Blaine that actually got me into magic to begin with. Aside from my uncle, I was interested in the topic
Hmm.
through seeing Blaine, and he had a major influence on me when I was younger. Now, one of the nice things about David Blaine is that he is a person who lets the magic speak for itself.
Sure.
So he worked very hard. Now, it may seem to some that he's a person with the personality of a cucumber, and that is deliberate. That is a character that he has built up over the years in order to take a step back and let the magic speak for itself. There are other people like Chris Angel, for instance, who might still be relevant to these kids. I know he's got the Las Vegas show here,
Right.
but he might be. I don't know if he's even on TV anymore or whatever. But I
Yeah,
know a
I
lot
don't
of
think his show's been
Instagram
on.
magicians, TikTok magicians, whatever. I don't know who people are watching nowadays, but but personally, I like when somebody lets the magic speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
They now it does work sometimes to put in metaphor and dance and all sorts of weird comedic bits and whatever. But for me, magic only does one thing that other art forms can't do, and that is to astonish you consciously. You can be there engaging with the method and still not know how it works.
One of the most impressive things that goes along with what you're saying that I've ever seen was a video of Ricky Jay doing just this complicated shuffle trick. I think it was Alaskan poker or whatever, but he's just doing all these different shuffles and keeps finding the cards in order after all these shuffles, but he doesn't say a single word the entire time. But it's so engaging because he's so good at what he does.
Yes. Yeah. This is magic is confrontational in nature, and confrontations and conflict in general is very interesting. There's a conflict in the room with you when you're doing a magic trick, which is this very real thing about, I am trying to fool you, and everybody knows that I'm trying to fool you, and you're gonna sit there, enjoy it or not, whatever. If you're consenting to this contest, right? And the idea is that I'm gonna try to fool you, and if I succeed, I have won. And that's kind of, there's sort of this meta understanding that that's the situation, even though that's what people. Well, if I succeed, really, we all have won, because
Right.
everybody likes that feeling, or most people like that feeling.
Sure.
But if I fail, I'll have lost. Success is predicated on the idea that somebody is engaging with trying to figure it out while it's happening. And to me, so that's why I really like somebody like David Blaine, who tries to make his magic as clean as possible, right? As impossible as possible. And also as the entertainment factor in the magic is how impossible it is.
Right.
It's not
right.
telling all these funny jokes, and all that stuff is good, but I would focus on the astonishment level of the magic first.
Sure.
That's where I would say, is to say to start. That's why he was such an influence on me, is I happen to share that philosophy.
Oh yeah.
Now,
yeah.
And beyond that, there's another form of magic which contradicts everything I've just said, which is mentalism, which to me, if you put a little more song and dance into it, it becomes more effective naturally. But whenever you see this is very important for the kids watching. If you get into magic, whenever you see somebody pretending to read minds, or whenever you see somebody guessing what hand a coin is in, or something like that, whenever you're thinking of something and they tell you what you're thinking of. Now that seems impossible. And then they say, oh, well, I do it by reading your body language, or something like that, right? Or I do it by momentarily hypnotizing you, or something like that.
Sure.
That is almost never the method. Just so you know, because you'll get a sense of relief and you'll be like, oh, well, he was just reading my body language. Oh, because you were standing with your elbows like this, you're thinking of a diamond card. It's like, no, the guy already knew the card.
Right.
The guy already knew what city you were thinking of, and he did it in a totally different way than you think, okay? Don't go down that road. Now, if you want to learn mentalism, there's some great mentalism in this book, okay? So this is a great place to start for any kind of magic.
Yeah, and better mentalism than guessing an orange kangaroo in Denmark.
Sure, whatever your force happens to be.
Right. All right. So last thing I got for you is, if people wanted to find your performances, where can they find you? Okay, and what are you working on?
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me in a couple of different places, ways to support me and my projects are, you can go to my website, kentaxell.com. I don't know if you'll put this up here or
I
just have a
will.
little link in the bio or whatever, but Kent, K-E-N-T, Axell, A-X-E-L-L.com. It's basically an online business card. It's got some stuff that could be of interest to you guys. But basically, that's where you find me. You can find all of my contact information there as well. You can contact me directly. I wrote a magic book. It's not for beginners, but if there are any non-beginners here who are interested in my magic book, you're more than welcome to contact me. If there are any beginners and you've looked into some books and stuff and you have some specific questions about magic, I am more than happy to help you out. So please, you can email me right at my email address, kentaxell@gmail.com. And then since I was on tour and I had to cancel the tour early because everyone was on lockdown and I had to return to Las Vegas, and I rekindled a relationship with an online streaming magic company called Magicflix, and that's like Netflix but for magic. And if you go onto magicflix.com, MAGICFLIX, and you type in the promo code Kent, and we'll put a link right down here which gets you right to the site with the promo code already applied, then you can get your first 30 days of Magicflix for free. And like I said, I'm on there too. A bunch of my friends are on there. It is a fantastic place to go and learn magic. I've curated most of the material myself because I led the content team when they were building the material. And it is a great place to go online and learn from the real masters, not just the guys you see on YouTube. Some of those guys are really good, but we have a massive collection of all of the classic masters and a bunch of modern, awesome magic at magicflix.com.
Well, Kent, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope it wasn't too painful for you.
No, easy peas. I want to come back, man. Let's come back and do it again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We may have you come on and teach another lesson of different styles of not just card, but maybe some mentalism.
That sounds great. I'd love to do that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right, David. Thank you so much. You too, man. Have a great day.
Bye. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Kent. I haven't gotten to speak with him in a while, so it was really fun catching up with him. And those tricks were amazing. That one where he mixed up the cards, I do a variation of that trick, and yet I don't know how he did that at all. But I am going to learn it. So, if you like what you saw, be sure to check out his website, kentaxell.com. I'm sure you can find him on YouTube. I know he has some videos up there still. A couple of them I may have helped shoot back when I lived in New York. And if you're really interested in learning more magic, you can always check out magicflix.com, which he helped pick a lot of those videos, and you can find him on there as well. That's magicflix.com. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. And next week, we have a very special guest. We actually have a microbiologist, and he's going to tell us all about his job, and it sounds really, really interesting. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.